G'day folks, just Ben here, just going to talk to you briefly, try and fit it in 5-10 minutes worth of sustainable yield modelling, starting off with the first one of our 3 principles behind simple sustainable modelling. And the first one is catch per unit of effort. Number 2 will be MSY, and these will all be separate tutorials. The third of which is maximum economic yield. So catch per unit effort, as the term implies, the P, catch per unit of effort. The unit of effort might be something like the amount of hooks used to take a nominal amount of catch, and the catch could be something related to the volume or the weight of fish. So it's normally kilograms, or more commonly the amount of tonnes we've used or taken from the fishery based on the amount of hooks or the amount of net or whatever we may have used to catch those fish. Right, so sustainable yield modelling is normally used where stocks are highly variable, and normally we control those with input controls. So the amount of net we use, the amount of hooks, the amount of horsepower we can use, access to the fishery. We might have areas that might be closed off after periods of time. The prawn industry is regulated that way. And then we have maximum economic yield, and that's normally based on the amount of fish that we can take from the fishery in terms of the amount of tonnes, so on and so forth, that's allocated to each licence. Sometimes we have inside economically yielded fisheries a thing that's called an ITQ, or an individual transferable quota, which basically I can lease my licence to someone else, get my money off that person, and they can catch more than they normally would otherwise. So realistically, back to catch per unit effort, it's just our amount of catch, right? And normally that's tonnes, but we need to double check that with the fisheries data as it's collected. Sometimes that comes from the management plan, or maybe even from the raw data, which is normally where I get it from. So catch in tonnes divided, or that's the per half, right, that's our divide, per the unit of effort. And the effort is very rarely the same thing with every fishery, unless it's something like long lining, or if it's net fishing, sometimes the efforts may align. So it might be a number of hooks per hook set, or a number of hooks per long line. With trawl fishing, for the bottom trawl, it might be the amount of hours they're allowed to spend trawling, size of the net, the length of the head rope, who knows. So it's highly variable. Very rarely is the level of effort ever the same in a fishery. So what I want you guys to do now for me is to download the Orange Roughy data set. That should be a link for it in Blackboard. Download it, and then periodically I'll ask you to pause the video if you need to work through step by step what I've done, just so that you can do it. And then I would say, after you've done it once with my guidance, go back and do it all again without the assistance of the video, to see how you go with it. So this is all about building a sustainable model, which we then will assess you on later on. At the moment, this is just a learning exercise, so I encourage you to pause the video if you need to. Maybe write some notes if you need my help. Just say, Ben, I'm really stuck on whatever situation it might be, and then get in contact with me. But hopefully we can guide you through with this short set of videos, but feel free to pause if you need. So once you've uploaded or downloaded this Excel spreadsheet, you should see it looks something very similar to this. It's actually a data set from New Zealand, and the data set is for Orange Roughy, and hopefully by now we would have discussed the problems that were associated with the Orange Roughy fishery. If we haven't discussed it yet, we will shortly, and you will see where this sustainable yield modelling pops in. Now, a minute ago we discussed that catch per unit effort is just the amount of catch, so that with this here is the amount of catch that the fishery has caught for a given year. So years are over here. Based on the amount of effort taken to do that catch. Alright, and in New Zealand they're basically measuring this fishery based on the amount of tows that have been used to catch X amount of fish. Alright, so some information on this sheet that we don't really need. We still need to know the year and everything, but we don't necessarily need to know the number of vessels at this point in time. So let's hide that column. I prefer to hide things rather than deleting them because I may need to use it later on. And to unhide it if I need to, I just left click and drag over the C and E columns at the top here. And then right click it again once it's highlighted and go unhide, and the vessels pop back up in column D. So left click on the D, right click, hide, and then left click and drag. Oh, didn't work that time. I must have clicked unhide. Let's click hide and then left click and drag, highlight the two columns, right click, unhide. Alright, so for now, what we're going to write in here is CPUE, and we know that it's going to be catch per unit of effort. This is our level of catch, and this is our number of effort. So up here, I just want to write effort, and here I'm going to write catch, just so that I can highlight it, just to make sure that I know which is which. Alright, and down here you'll see that the catch is measured out in tonnes. So just very quickly, just pause the video, go through and just perform what I've done there, just labelling the column. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to do that for me. Now you'll see here how I said that this column here had tonnes written into it, but it's not visible down here, and that's simply because the box isn't big enough to see everything. So if you want to be able to quickly resize a box so that you can see what's in there, just hover up here between the F and G along your header bar there. See how the arrow changes to a cross with two ends on it, two arrows on each end. Get up there to that point between the two and just double click it with your left mouse button, and it automatically resizes to the biggest parameter that's available. Alright, now traditionally when we want to put a formula together or whatever we do, we might do it on a calculator, or we might write it down by hand and then do it on a calculator. Some people may do it in their head, who knows. But Microsoft Excel doesn't really think that way. So it thinks in the references between the G and the 7. So cell reference in this position where I am right now is cell G7. If I move up here, it's reference G2. So we talk about our formulas written like that. So if I come down here to G7 to calculate my catch divided by my effort, I'm not going to go let's just write in 1,131 divided by 256. Microsoft Excel is not going to know what the hell to do with that. It's just going to keep it there like we've written it in there. So what we have to do is clear that cell, and we could go equals 1331 divided by 256 and then press enter, and it's going to give us an answer. Alright, but that's not what we want to do. We don't want to manually write all this stuff in just in case we make an error for one. But number 2 says, oh, maybe I can use this formula somewhere else at a later stage, and I can just copy and paste special or whatever and get across. So what we want to do is just go put equals in there. So click on the cell we want to go. In this cell it's G7. Put the equal sign in there so that Microsoft Excel recognises that it is a formula that we want it to calculate. And then we're going to go, knowing that this is our catch column, we're going to click on cell F7. Alright, it's going to go, hey, is this the cell you want? And if it's not, you might just be able to move it around just by hovering over it and get this 4-pointed cross. This stage, we want it to be F7. Alright, then the divide sign, which is the / on any keyboard. And then we can just click on our level of effort. So in this situation, it's F7 divided by E7, and we press enter, and you'll see these crappy little hashtags pop up. Alright, that basically just means that there may be a problem with the formula, or the number is too big to put in that box. So if it's too big, come up here between G and H, left click, and now it's telling us value. Why is it telling us value? Righto. I can see a problem in here. The data set's been copied and pasted from another document, and there's a gap in these numbers. So see here where there's 1 with a space to 5. I'm going to go through and I'm going to manually change all these because it's the only way I can do it, and I'll get right back to you. But just be aware that there's little glitches like that in Microsoft Excel when we're copying and pasting from other places that may cause a problem. Okay, so I've just gone through and converted or taken all the gaps out of these datas where it's required, and should have been a comma in there to separate the thousands in there, but the data set didn't have that. So I've figured out what it was, gone back in, removed the gap that was in here, and now I've got a F7 divided by E7, which has enabled me to get the relevant number for catch per unit effort that is in there. Alright, so what I want you to do is very quickly pause the video again, come up here to the formula bar, put your equal sign in there, click on your F7 column, /, click on your E7 cell reference, and then press enter. Hopefully you should get a figure of 5.199, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you've got the figure of 5.1999, or whatever the hell it is, you'll see that in the cell it's actually saying that that's the number. Microsoft Excel is telling us that that is the result of the sum that we've done. We click on that thing, we'll see that the formula up here is still written in there, but Microsoft Excel is giving us the result of that formula. Now we can go back through and enter this in for every individual one, but that would be really time consuming. So the fastest thing for us to do, providing that F7 is always next to E7 in the adjacent column, we can just click onto the cell G7. We've written the formula once, pop over to this little black box that's in the corner, and you'll see our cursor change from the big white cross to a black cross, which means that we can just hold down the left mouse button, click and drag to fill, and what do you know? It's automatically filled down the column, taking into account the formula, and we get this one here that pops up with a formula saying F13 divided by E13, so we can go in there and just check and make sure that F13 is right, E13 is correct. So the next logical thing is to say, hey, Benno's an idiot, and he forgot to remove the gap that's in between those two there, and once I press enter on there, the formula is now complete, and we can see that the catch per unit effort varies quite a considerable amount over time. Alright, so just go through, do that for me, pause the video, fill down for me, and if you find out you've got any errors, just have a look and see if you can troubleshoot it yourself. If not, you might have to give me a tingle or email me, and we'll have a look at it for you. So I'm a little bit anal, I've just gone back through and I put borders around stuff just to neaten it up. So now what we want to do is, you can clearly see that we've got this fluctuation in our catch per unit effort, and you'll see that there's a subsequent fluctuation in the amount of catch that's been taken over time. And generally speaking, once a fishery is exploited, we keep increasing our pressure until the point where we go, hang on a tick, we're starting to slow down our catch, and that's will slow down, or our numbers reduce for the amount of effort that we're putting in. And realistically what we're trying to model here right now, or eventually get to model in sustainable yield and maximum economic yield, is the point at where the catch starts to decrease, because that's the point where we want to be really aware of how much more pressure we're going to put on to how much we may collapse the fishery. Alright, so what we're going to do now is to measure our catch per unit effort against the amount of effort that we're actually putting in. So we're going to model the two against each other. So to do that, press insert, come across to your insert, and we want to insert a scatter chart. Alright, and just the first one that pops up, move it around so that it's a bit away from it. We want to go to select data, and we want to add our data range, take that out of there, left click and drag over effort, and then we come up to our X series values, and we put, oops, sorry, I've got these in the wrong column, sorry, wrong place. Catch per unit effort goes up the y-axis, and your number of effort goes down the x-axis. Alright, so effort along the x-axis, and y-axis is CPUE. So to do that, I'll just go backwards a couple of steps and go add. Alright, my y-axis, alright, I'm just going to delete what's in there, so highlight it and delete it. I'm going to left click and drag over my CPUE, all the data that's there, so just straight over that column, CPUE, excluding the header tag for CPUE, and then click let it go, and then it'll bring it back to this dialog box for edit series. And then we're going to go click back in the X series values, and we're going to put left click and drag over all of our effort values, excluding the header or the title of the column. Click OK. Alright, now we've got a chart that's represented on here. What we want to do is add a line through it so that we can see how much relationship is there between the catch per unit effort and the amount of effort that we put in. Alright, so we can right click our data set. We're going to add a trend line. Alright, and it's a linear relationship, hopefully. So let's go up to linear. Alright, it's already on linear, and then we want to just click these two boxes down here because they give us most of the information that we're going to need for the next stage. So click close, and just drag that box out so we can see what's going on. Alright, now basically this formula is telling us how much slope is on the line. That's what this minus 0.0002 is, as to how drastically the change may occur over time. And this section on the end is where that line crosses on the y-axis. So theoretically, wherever that line crosses on the y-axis is going to be where a general ballpark figure as to one of our sustainable points. Alright, this little number over here tells us how reliable our data is, and it's actually pretty crappy. Really, the more reliable that number gets, the higher it gets to 1. So relatively, we're talking about a 5% reliability on this data set, which is quite surprising for me, really. So if we were looking at a data set that was up around 70 or 80, sorry, a 0.8 or a 0.7, we'd be thinking that it's quite reliable. Right, so what we've done is just basically modelled the fishery based on catch per unit effort. And there's two other things we can do, is just to double check that these data points up here are right. But it is to calculate the slope of this, and oh, what's going on here? Calculate slope. Whoops, I made a boo-boo here somewhere. Alright, let's try it again. Equals slope, we've got to put a bracket around it. And because we're modelling your known y's against your known x's, so we put CPUE in first because that's our y. And then we put a comma against our known x's, and it should give us the same, relatively the same number as minus 0.002. Alright, that's the number, that's correct. Alright, so basically that's saying minus 2 and then with 4 decimal points in front of the 2. So if we come over here to this number, and I'll zoom in on it. Alright, so 4 decimal points in front of the 2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so basically that's what that minus 2 2e to the minus 4 equals. It means that the decimal point is in front, 4 points in front of the 2, basically. Alright, so we're just going to put in their slope, and then we're going to type in intercept for that. And these two numbers we use later on as our A and B, whoops, wrong column, our A and B functions for our MSY modelling, which we will do after we complete this CPUE modelling. Alright, so in here we go equals into, I've gotten halfway through it and it's already picked up that I want the intercept. Alright, and this time it's asking me the same thing, calculates the point at which the line intersects the y-axis by using known x and y values. So we want to go intercept, and unfortunately with Microsoft Excel we have to write stuff fully in. It won't let you click on the box and then go, hey, I'm calculating intercept. So now we need to put in our y values again, comma on the keyboard, our x values, close the bracket, press enter. Alright, and these numbers should be reliable enough up here. And if we really wanted to, I probably could draw this out, and you'll see that the -2e, -4 is gone now. It's basically just trying to cram that number into that box and using a shorthand way of doing it. Alright, so catch per unit effort, we've finished hopefully the calculation for stuff now. So I just want you to pause the video again if you need to, and we'll be back just to summarise what CPUE looks like in real life. So hopefully by now you've got this data set looking similar to this, and it's really important that we get these numbers out to double check to make sure that these sets of numbers up here are okay. And like I say, realistically CPUE is just a measurement of, or a theoretical measurement of the amount of effort that we take to catch from the real data, and we're modelling it to make sure that into the future we can predict what's happening into the future. So it's a predictive tool based on historical information. So from here, what we're going to do is to just have a quick look at what that data might look like when it comes out in a fisheries report, or what it might look like to you when someone hands it to you to go have a look at the data. So the blue line that's coming through here, this blue line here, ending up over here, is your CPUE. Alright, and the data bars in here that we see, there are lots of them and they sort of jump around a little bit, indicative of the amount of catch that's been taken through an orange roughy fishery. It's not the same fishery that we've just done, but it is very similar. So you'll see this peak here, big peak, and you'll already see that there's a lot of effort, or it's lesser effort here than the year before. Alright, the effort the year before only took this pissy little bit of catch. Alright, and where we see high level of effort and not very much catch, where they separate each other, they're really far apart, it could indicate that there's a lot of searching, or the opening of the fishery, and anglers, or we should say fishermen realistically, are seeking to find the grounds where the fish are. And then traditionally after that we find that there might be a decrease in catch per unit effort, but we may see this spike realistically up here, because we've actually found out where the fish are. Now we're going to apply as much pressure as we can to take what we can. Alright, and then after that, it doesn't always represent exactly what we've got here. We traditionally really would see that fishery after it's been exploited to the point where we find out where the fish and everything are, that over time catch per unit effort may drop away, and so do our catches. And realistically, you want to find out where that tipping point is, and CPUE can help us model out where that occurs, but it's not suitable by itself. We really need to run the sustainable yield models in conjunction with it to find out where our target reference points and our limit reference points are. And I would say that that's what this line here is. You can just faintly see below where I've just drawn. There's a line through there. So we want to make sure that catch per unit effort doesn't drop below that line, because it's indicating that we're well and truly below where our fish can reproduce and keep the sustainable stock running. So after this module, hopefully you produce what we've just produced on the on the Microsoft Excel chart, and we'll step across into maximum sustainable yield modelling, and you'll see the progression from CPUE into how we can create the limit reference and target reference